The Odyssey, Book 5, Sweet Nymph and Open Sea. Dawn came up from the couch of her reclining, leaving her lord Tithonus' brilliant side, with fresh light in her arms for gods and men. And the master of heaven and high thunder, Zeus, went to his place among the gods assembled, hearing Athena tell Odysseus' woe. For she, being vexed that he was still sojourning in the sea chambers of Calypso, said, O Father Zeus and gods in bliss forever, let no man holding a scepter as a king think to be mild or kind or virtuous. Let him be cruel and practice evil ways, for those Odysseus ruled could not remember the fatherhood and mercy of his reign. Meanwhile he lives and grieves upon that island in thraldom to the nymph. He cannot stir, cannot fare homeward, for no ship is left to him, fitted with oars, no crewmen or companions to pull him on broad back of the sea. And now murder is hatched on the high sea against his son, who sought news of his father in the holy lands of Pylos and Lacedaemon. To this the summoner of clouds replied, My child, what odd complaints you let escape you? Have you not, you yourself, arranged this matter, as we all know, so that Odysseus will bring these men to book on his return? And are you not the one to give Telemachus a safe route for sailing? Let his enemies encounter no one and row him home again. He turned then to his favorite son and said, Hermes, you have much practice on our missions. Go make it known to the softly braided nymph that we, whose will is not subject to error, order Odysseus home. Let him depart. But let him have no company, no gods or men, only a raft that he must lash together. And after 20 days, worn out at sea, he shall make land upon the garden isle, Shira, and our kinsmen, the Phaeacians. Let these men take him to the hearts in honor, and berth him in a ship, and send him home, with gifts of garments, gold and bronze. So much he had not counted on from Troy, could he have not carried home his share of plunder. His destiny is to see his friends again, under his own roof, in his father's country. No words were lost on Hermes the wayfinder, who bent to tie his beautiful sandals on, ambrosial golden that carry him over water, or over endless land in a swish of the wind, and took the wand with which he storms asleep, or when he wills, awake, the eyes of men. So wand in hand he paced into the air, shot from down to sea level, and veered to skim the swell. A gull patrolling between the wave crests of the desolate sea will dip to catch a fish, and douse his wings. No higher above the white caps Hermes flew, until a distant island lay ahead. Then rising shoreward from the violet ocean, he stepped up to the cave. Divine Calypso, the mistress of the isle, was now at home. Upon her hearthstone, a great fire blazing scented the farthest shores of cedar smoke, and spoke of time. And singing high and low in her sweet voice, before her loom a-weaving, she passed her golden shuttle to and fro. A deep wood grew outside, with summer leaves of alder and black poplar, pungent cypress. Ornate birds here rested their stretched wings, horned owls, falcons, cormorants, long-tongued beach-combing birds, and followers of the sea. Around the smooth-walled cave a cooking vine held purple clusters under a ply of green. And 4 springs bubbled up near one another, shallow and clear, so channels here and there through the beds of violets and tender parsley. Even a god who found this place would gaze, and feel his heart beat with delight. So Hermes did, but when he had gazed his fill, he entered the wide cave. Now face to face, the magical Calypso recognized him, as all immortal gods know one another, on sight, though seeming strangers far from home. But he saw nothing of the great Odysseus, who sat apart 1,000 times before, and racked his own heart groaning, his eyes wet, scanned the bare horizon of the sea. Calypso, a lovely nymph, seated her guest in a bright chair all shimmering, and asked, O Hermes, ever with your golden wand, what brings you to my island? Your awesome visits in the past were few. Now tell me what request you have in mind, for I desire to do it, if I can, and if it is the proper thing to do. But wait a while, and let me serve my friend. She drew a table of ambrosia near him, and stirred a cup of ruby-colored nectar, food and drink for the luminous wayfinder, who took both at his leisure, and replied, Goddess to god, you greet me, questioning me? Well, here is truth for your incourtesy. Zeus made me come, and not in my inclination, who cares to cross that tract of desolation, the bitter sea, all mortal towns behind, where gods have beef and honors from mankind? But it is not to be thought of, and no use, for any god to elude the will of Zeus. He notes your friend, most ill-starred by renown of all the peers who fought in Priam's town. 9 years of war they had, before the Troy was down. Homing they wronged the goddess with grey eyes, who made a black wind blow and seas rise, in which his troops were lost, and all his gear, while easterlies in current washed him here. Now the command is, send him back in haste. His life may not in exile go to waste. His destiny, his homecoming, is at hand, when he shall see his dearest, and walk on his own land. That goddess most divinely made shuddered before him, and her warm voice rose. O you vile gods, in jealousy supernal, you hate it when we choose to lie with men, immortal flesh by some dear mortal side. So radiant dawn once took to bed Orion, until you eastful gods grew peevish at it, and holy Artemis, Artemis throned in gold, hunted him down in Delos with her arrows. Then the meter and the tasseled tresses yielded to Iasion, mingling and making love in the furrow 3 times plowed. But Zeus found out, and killed him with a white-hot thunderbolt. So now you grudge me too, my mortal friend. But it was I who saved him, saw him straddle his own keelboard, the one man left afloat when Zeus rent wide his ship in chain lightning and overturned him in the wine-dark sea. Then all his troops were lost, his good companions, but wind and current washed him here to me. I fed him, loved him, saying that he should not die, nor grow old, ever in all the days to come. But now there's no eluding Zeus's will. If this thing be ordained by him, I say, so be it. Let the man strike out alone on the vast water. Surely I cannot send him. I have no long-oared ships, no company to pull him on the broad back of the sea. My counsel he shall have, and nothing hidden, to keep him homeward without harm. To this the wayfinder made answer briefly. Thus you shall send him then, and show more grace in your obedience, or be chastised by Zeus. The strong god glittered left her as he spoke, and now her ladyship, having given heed to Zeus's mandate, went to find Odysseus in his stone seat to seaward, tear on tear brimming his eyes. The sweet days of his lifetime were running out in anguish over his exile, for long ago the nymph had ceased to please. Though he fought shy of her in her desire, he lay with her each night, for she compelled him. But when day came out he sat on the rocky shore, and broke his own heart, groaning, with eyes wet, scanning the bare horizon of the sea. Now she stood near him in her beauty, saying, O forlorn man, be still. Here you need grieve no more. You need not feel your life consumed here. I have pondered it, and I shall help you go. Come and cut down high timber for a raft or flatboard. Make her broad-beamed and decked over, so you can ride her on the misty sea. Stores I shall put aboard for you, bread, water, and ruby-colored wine to stay your hunger. Give you a sea cloak and following wind to help you homeward without harm, provided the gods who rule wide heaven wish it so, stronger than they are in mind and power. For all he had endured, Odysseus shuddered, but when he spoke, his words went to the mark. After all these years, a helping hand? O goddess, what guile is hidden here? A raft, you say, to cross the western ocean, rough water and unknown? Seaworthy ships and glory in God's wind will never cross it. I take no raft you grudge me out to sea, or yield me first a great oath, if I do, to work no more enchantment to my harm. In this the beautiful nymph Calypso smiled and answered sweetly, laying her hand upon him. What a dog you are, and not for nothing learnt, having the wit to ask this thing of me. My witness then be earth and sky and dripping sticks, that I swear by. The gay gods cannot swear more seriously. I have no further spells to work against you. But what I shall devise, and what I tell you, will be the same as if your need were mine. Fairness is all I think of. There are hearts made of cold iron, but my heart is kind. Swiftly she turned and led him to her cave, and they went in, the mortal and immortal. He took the chair and left empty now by Hermes, where the divine Calypso placed before him victuals and drink of men. Then she sat down facing Odysseus, while her serving maids brought nectar and ambrosia to her side. Then each one's hands were put out on each's one feast, until they had had their pleasure. And she said, Son of Laertes, versatile Odysseus, after these years with me, you still desire your own home? Even so, I wish you well. If you could see it all before you go, all the adversity you face at sea, you would stay here and guard this house and be immortal. Though you wanted her forever, that bride for whom you pine each day, can I be less desirable than she is? Less interesting? Less beautiful? Can mortals compare with goddess in grace and form? To this the strategist Odysseus answered, My lady goddess, here is no cause for anger. My lady goddess, here is no cause for answer. My quiet Penelope, how well I know, would seem a shade before your majesty, death and old age being unknown to you, while she must die. Yet it is true, each day I long for home, long for a sight of home. If any god has marked me out again for shipwreck, my tough heart can undergo it. What hardship have I not long since endured at sea in battle? Let the trial come. Now as he spoke, the sun set, dusk drew on, and they retired, this pair, to the inner cave to revel and rest softly, side by side. While Dawn spread out her fingertips of rose, Odysseus pulled his tunic and his cloak on, while the sea nymph, dressed in a silvery gown and silk tissue, drew about her waist a golden belt and veiled her head, and then took thought for a great-hearted hero's voyage. The brazen axe head first she had given him, two-bladed, and agreeable to palm, with a smooth-fitting haft for olive wood. Next a well-polished adze, and then she led him to the island's tips where bigger timber grew. Besides the alder and poplar, tall pine trees, long dead and seasoned, that would float him high. Showing him in that place her stand of timber, the loveliest of nymphs took her way home. Now the man fell chopping. When he paused, 20 trees were down. He lopped the branches, split the trunks, and trimmed his puncheons true. Meanwhile, Calypso brought him an auger tool, with which he drilled through all his planks, then drove. Stout pits to bolt them down, fitted side by side. A master shipwright, building a cargo vessel, lays down a broad and shallow hole. Just so Odysseus shaved the bottom of his craft. He made the decking fast to close-set ribs before he closed the side with longer planking, then cut a mast pole in proper yard, and shaped a steering oar to hold her steady. He drove long stands of willow in all the seams to keep out waves, and blasted the logs. As for a sail, the lovely nymph Calypso brought him a cloth so that he could make that too. Then he ran up his rigging, halyards, braces, then hauled the boat on rollers to the water. This was the 4th day, when he had all ready. On the 5th day she had sent him out to sea. But first she bathed him, gave him a scented cloak, and put aboard a skin a dusky wine, with water in a bigger skin, and stores, boiled meats and other victuals in a bag. Then she conjured him a warm land breeze to blowing, joy for Odysseus when he shook out sail. Now the great seaman, leaning on his oar, steered all the night unsleeping, and his eyes picked out the Pleiades and laggard ploughman, and the great bear, that some had called the Wain, pivoting the sky before Orion. All the night's pure figures, while she alone never bathed or dipped in the ocean stream. These stars that beautiful Calypso bade him hold on his left hand as he crossed the main. 17 nights and days in the open water he sailed before a dark shoreline appeared. Shira then came slowly into view, like a rough shield bull's hide on the sea. But now the god of earthquakes, storming home over the mountains of the Asia from the sunburned land, sighted him from far away. The god grew sullen and tossed his great hand, muttering to himself, "Here is a pretty cruise. While I was gone, the gods have changed their minds about Odysseus. Look at him now, just offshore of that island, that frees him of the bondage of his exile. Still I can give him a rough ride in, and will." Brewing high thunderheads, he turned the deep with both hands on his trident, called up wind from every corner, and sent a wall of rain to blot out land and sea in torrential night. Hurricane winds now struck from the south and east, shifting northwest, in a great spume of seas, on which Odysseus' knees grew slack. His heart sickened, and he said within himself, "Rag of man that I am, is this the end of me? I fear the goddess told it all too well, predicting that great adversity at sea and far from home. Now all things bear her out, the whole rondure of heaven hidden so by Zeus in woeful cloud, and the sea raging under such winds. I am going down, that's sure. How lucky those Danaans were perished on Troy's wide seaboard serving the Atridae. Would God I, too, had died there, met my end that time the Trojans made so many casts at me when I stood at the Achilles after death. I should have had a soldier's burial and praise from the Achaeans. Not this choking water for me at sea, unmarked and lonely." A great wave drove at him with toppling crest, spinning him round in one tremendous blow, and he went plunging overboard, the oar haft wrenched from his grip. A gust that came on howling at the same instant broke his mast in two, hurling his yard and sail far out to leeward. Now the big wave a long time kept him under, helpless to surface, held tons of water, tangled too by the sea cloak of Calypso. Long until he came up from sprouting brine, it was streamlets gushing from his head and his beard, and still bethought him, half drowned as he was, to flounder for the boat and get a handhold onto the bilge, to crouch there foiling death. Across the foaming water, to and fro, the boat careered like a ball of tumbleweed blown to the autumn plains, but intact still. So the wind drove this wreck over the deep, east wind and north wind and south wind and west, cursing each in turn to the brutal Hari. But, saw him, Cadmos' daughter, slim-legged, lovely, once an earthling girl, now in the sea's nereid, Leucothea. Touched by Odysseus' painful buffeting, she broke the surface like a diving bird, to rest upon the tossing raft and say, "O forlorn man, I wonder why the earth-shaker, Lord Poseidon, holds this fearful grudge, father of all your woes. He will not drown you, though, despite his rage. You seem clear-headed still. Do what I tell you. Shed that cloak, let the gale take your craft, and swim for it. Swim hard to get ashore upon Shira and yonder, where it is fated that you shall find shelter. Here, make my veil your sash. It is not mortal. You can, now, be drowned or suffer harm. Only the instant you lay hold of earth, discard it, cast it far, far out from shore, in the wine-dark sea again, and turn away." After she had bestowed her veil, the Nereid dove like a gull to windward, where a dark wave-side closed over her whiteness. But in perplexity Odysseus said to himself, his great heart laboring, "O damned confusion! Can this be a ruse to trick me from the boat for some god's pleasure? No, I'll not swim. With my own eyes I saw how far the loin lies that she called my shelter. Better to do the wise thing as I see it. While this poor plinking holds, I stay aboard. I may write out the pondering of the store. Or if she cracks up, take the water then. I cannot think it through a better way." But even while he pondered and decided, the god of earthquake heaved a wave against him high as a roof tree and of awful gloom. A gust of wind, hitting a pile of chaff, will scatter all the parched stuff far and wide. Just so, when this gigantic billow struck, the boat's big timbers flew apart. Odysseus clung to a single beam, like a jockey riding, meanwhile stripping Calypso's cloak away. Then he slung round his chest the veil of Ino and plunged headfirst into the sea. His hands went out to stroke, and he gave a swimmer's kick. But the strong earth-shaker had him under his eye, and nodded as he said, Go on. Wander the high seas this way, take your blows, before you join that race the gods have nurtured. Nor will you grumble even then, I think, for want of trouble." Whipping his glossy team, he rode up to his glorious home at Aegae. But Zeus's daughter Athena countered him. She checked the course of all the winds but one, commanding them, "Be quiet and go to sleep." Then she sent a long swell running under a northward to bear the prince Odysseus back from danger to join the Phaeacians, people of the sea. 2 nights, 2 days, in a solid deep sea swell he drifted, many times awaiting death, till the shining ringlets in the east, the dawn confirmed a 3rd day, breaking clear over a high and windless sea, and mounting a rolling wave he caught a glimpse of land. What a dear welcome thing life seems to children, whose father in extremity recovers after some weakening and malignant illness. His pangs are gone, and the gods have delivered him. So dear and welcome to Odysseus the sight of land, of woodland, on that morning. It made him swim again, to get a foothold on solid ground. When he came in earshot, he heard a trampling roar of sea on rock, where combers, rising shoreward, thudded down the sucking ebb, all sheeted with salt foam. Here were no covers or harborage or shelter, only steep headlands, rock-fallen reefs and crags. Odysseus' knees grew slack, his heart faint. A heaviness came over him, and he said, "A cruel turn, this. Never had I thought to see this land, but Zeus has let me see it, and let me, too, traverse the western ocean, only to find no exit from these breakers. Here are sharp rocks offshore, and the sea is a smother rushing around them, rock-faced, rising sheer from deep water. Nowhere could I stand up on my 2 feet and fight free of welter. No matter how I try it, the surf may throw me against the cliffside. No good fighting there. If I swim down to the coast outside the breakers, I may find shelving shore and quiet water. But what if another gale comes on to blow? Then I go cursing out to sea once more, or then again some shark of Amphitrite's. It may hunt me, sent by the genius of the deep. I know how he wants to make the earth tremble hates me." During this meditation, a heavy surge was taking him, in fact, straight on the rocks. He had been flayed there, and his bones broken had not the great-eyed Athena instructed him. His grip a rock ledge with both hands in passing, and held on, groaning as the surge went by, to keep clear of its breaking. Then the backwash hit him, ripping him under and far out. An octopus, when you drag one from his chamber, comes up with suckers full of tiny stones. Odysseus left the hand of his great hands torn from the rock ledge as the waves submerged him, and now at last Odysseus would have perished, battered inhumanly, but he had the gift of self-possession from the grey-eyed Athena. So when the backwash spewed him up again, he swam out and long and scanned the coast for some land spit that made a breakwater. Lo and behold, the mouth of a calm river at length came into view, with level shores unbroken, free from rock, shielded from wind, by far the best place he had found. But as he felt the current flowing seaward, he prayed in his heart, "O hear me, Lord of the stream! How sorely I depend upon your mercy! Dear elect as I am by the sea's anger, Is he not scared even to the gods, the wandering man who comes as I have come in weariness before your knees, your waters? Here is your servant, Lord, have mercy on me. Not even as he prayed, the tide at ebb had turned, and the river god made quiet water, drawing him into safety of the shallows. His knees buckled, his arms gave way beneath them, all vital force now conquered by the sea. Swollen from head to foot he was, and sea water gushed from his mouth and nostrils. There he lay, scarce drawing breath, unstirring, deathly spent. In time, as the air came back into his lungs and warmth around his heart, he loosened the veil, letting it drift away on the estuary downstream to where a white wave took it under, and Ina's hands received it. Then the man crawled to the river bank among the reeds where, face down, he could kiss the soil of earth, in his exhaustion murmuring to himself, "What more can this hulk suffer? What comes now? In vigil through the night here by the river, how I cannot succumb, being weak and sick, to the night's damp and hoar frost of the morning. The air comes cold from the rivers before dawn, but if I climb the slope and fall asleep in the dark forest undergrowth, supposing cold and fatigue will go, and sweet sleep come, I fear I'll make the wild beasts easy prey." But this seemed best to him as he thought it over. He made his way to the grove above the water in open ground, and crept under the twin bushes grown from the same spot, olive and wild olive, a thicket proof against the stinging wind or sun's blaze, fine soever the needling sunlight, nor could a downpour wet it through, so dense those plants were interwoven. Here Odysseus tunneled and raked together with his hands a wide bed, for a fall of leaves was there, enough to save 2 men or maybe 3 on a winter's night, a night of bitter cold. Odysseus' heart laughed when he saw his leaf bed, and down he lay, heaping more leaves above him. A man in a distant field, no hearth fires near, will hide a fresh man in his bed of embers to keep a spark alive for the next day. Soon the leaves Odysseus hid himself, while over him Athena showered sleep that his distress should end, and soon, soon. In quiet sleep she sealed his cherished eyes.